It's your voice, your vote. So let's bring in the political experts tonight. We do have Democrat Andrew Acosta and then Republican Matt Rexroad right here next to me. I want to jump right in with this question. So both of the candidates have been focused on basically 7 battleground states, with Pennsylvania considered a must-win. What will you be watching for as an early indicator of which campaign is, shall we say, having a good night? Let's start with the Republican here.
Well, from my point of view, actually, I think the 3 wall states that people talk about, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, are critical. And people seem to be treating them like they're independent events. And I don't actually believe that. I think that the way politics work out now, people hear information from across different places. You don't have to be in the auditorium to hear it. You can see it on TV. You can hear it on the radio. And so I think all 3 of those states are likely to be very similar in terms of voting outcome. They're similar in terms of demographics for a lot of reasons. And so that's why I don't think the race may not even be as close as people think. One candidate for president is going to win probably all 3 of those states, and that will be determinative in who's the next president.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that because I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
Sure, let's turn to the Democrat, though, because I want to know what are the things you're going to be watching to determine which campaign is having a good night?
Well, I think Matt hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're hearing a lot about Pennsylvania, and I think the amount of money that's been spent there, it's $600 million for the presidential, and when you factor in the other Senate race and some of the other races, it's $1 billion in one state. So I don't think anyone's going to have any voter probably is happy to turn their TV off tonight to be done with these ads. But I think what Matt said is these states do move together. So I think that we're going to see, the problem we're going to have is we won't know for a few days how they move, because some of these states like Pennsylvania, it's going to take a couple days, like what we have here. They're going to have a while to see some of this. So they might move together, but they just might take some time for we actually see what the votes are.
Right. You mentioned Pennsylvania, how they count their votes. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin don't count their votes in early ballots that come in until Election Day. Well, let's turn to Congress now. When it comes to Congress, California can really have a big impact in this election cycle. It runs control of the House, runs right through Northern California. All eyes on District 13, of course, which you guys know was flipped Republican in 2022 by a very slim margin, about just over 500 votes here. So I want to ask, on the Republican side first, how are the Republicans feeling in the control for Congress tonight?
Well, this is a tough election cycle for Republicans because here in California anyway, those first races that were won 2 years ago, it was the first cycle after redistricting, and it was a gubernatorial election when turnout was lower. This is a much higher turnout election. So when you see John Duarte, Congressman Duarte, is running for re-election, he's got a rematch against former Assemblyman Adam Gray. You're talking about 2 candidates who are obviously very familiar with each other, but this turnout is totally different for this presidential race than we had 2 years ago for governor. Now, Congressman Duarte has the advantage of the incumbency. He's had 2 years to be able to go and prove himself in office, and we'll see whether it's enough. But the demographic of the people that are voting today are just vastly different than it was 2 years ago, and I think you might see, you've seen different strategies as a result of that. Duarte's consultant was just quoted saying that they went after Latino voters early. I don't think they had the luxury of doing that 2 years ago. This time they do, and it'll be a really close race no matter what, and that's true all the way down the valley, down to David Valadao, and Rudy Salas, also in a rematch down in Bakersfield.
Right, that's a good point. District 13 does have one of the fastest growing cities in our state, Lathrop, which a lot of people from the East Bay have moved into, so that also contributes to the changing demographic there. The Democrats, how are they feeling tonight?
Well, I think, as Matt said, this is about Latino turnout. Those seats, many of those seats have Democratic registration advantages. And what we saw last cycle with a governor's race that wasn't very exciting is people didn't vote. So with a presidential race, we should have increased turnout. We'll have to see who wins that. I mean, as Matt said, the Duarte ads attacking Adam Gray, most of those have Latino people, like spokespeople in the ads. So they're definitely targeting a demographic, but we'll have to see. I think that the great unknown is how the impact of Kamala Harris is on those seats. Does she energize Latino voters? And that's something we haven't really seen. And some of the polling has said that it's not happening as to the level that it should. So those races could be competitive, but we don't know. And the way California goes, there's so many ballots that are coming in today that it might take us 2 weeks to understand that.
And if Joe Biden was on the ballot, we probably wouldn't even be talking about the seat right now, because it was just a very different outcome. Just 6 or 8 weeks ago, we would be talking about very different seats in California in terms of what's on the pivot of election outcomes.
I have 15 seconds really quickly. We've seen the polls say that this would be a close race. A quick reaction to this one. Will it be close or will this be an early night?
We may not know until Thanksgiving.
What do you
Well,
say?
yeah, presidential, we're not going to know for a few days, so I think it's going to be that close.
We're talking about CD13? Are we talking about
We talk about the
presidency?
race?
We'll know in 72 hours, most likely.
Okay, stay with us. If you have questions for the experts, you can text them to 916-321-3310, and we will try to get them answered.